Everything's connected. You can hear us. We're good. Awesome. Then let's rock and roll. We will call our February 18th meeting of the State Board of Landscape Architects, Connecticut, to order at 9:42. First item on the agenda is review of our November 12th, 2024 meeting minutes. I did flip through the meeting minutes. I didn't see any edits that needed to be made. I don't know if you guys had the opportunity to look through them.
I did last week when we got them. I had no issue.
I
Okay,
don't have any either.
so would somebody like to make a motion to approve those
So
minutes?
moved. I'll make that
Second?
motion.
Second.
Janice, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, item 2, comments or concerns of any person present today. I will double check with Rochelle. Do we have anybody in the waiting room, and do we have any other comments?
Nobody else is here and I have no comments.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Item 3, DCP Investigation Division. I believe we do not have any notes that were presented for this meeting.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. Moving on, item 4, old business. The one thing I would like to reference on this one is when I was reviewing our meeting minutes of November 12th, I did notice that there was some back and forth. Phil had said he was going to forward an email that he had received with some questions regarding DCP and regulations and who can request making that regulation change. He did forward that email. And I believe, Maggie, you responded to Phil.
Yep.
So we did respond to him. I just didn't want to leave that as open-ended. We'll see if that gives him what he needs in order to respond, but I don't think we need to continue on that one. Anybody else have any old business? I can't think of anything. Okay, item 5, new business. We have 2 new applications for licensing by written examination. The first one is Kang Young Hee. Dom or Janice, did you have a chance to review what was submitted?
I did. And like you said, I mean, he didn't come first, but it follows the procedure in terms of sitting forward after 2 years under a licensed landscape architect. So I don't have any issue with this candidate.
Yep, I
And,
felt
I'm
the
sorry.
same.
Yeah, and he's been at Sasaki for 3 years.
Yeah. Nitpicking a little bit, just for the record. I would have loved to have him come prior to sitting for the exam and request our acceptance and permission to sit for the exam. However, he is coming to us with all 3 E's: the education, the experience, and the exam. So therefore, I don't have a problem if we vote on this one. And I'd like to keep them separate on both of these topics. So if somebody would like to make a motion that we accept Kang Young Hee.
Also move it.
Yeah, second.
Janice will second. All in favor for approving Kang Young Hee?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, congratulations, Mr. Hee. Okay, the second one is Matilda Otto. Matilda Otto has taken a different path than what we've seen more standard as far as graduating from an accredited university and having their 2 to 3 years of experience, and then either coming to us and asking to sit for the exam or coming to us with a past exam and the other 2, education and experience. Miss Otto has quite a bit of experience, graduated from a non-accredited university overseas, but did submit the educational third-party review of those credits. But I would like just to discuss her experience that she has. So what
I'm
I could see
sorry,
is
yeah.
that about 8 years of it was not under a licensed landscape architect. And then there was about another 8 years that you wouldn't have known based upon Clark's record that it was under a landscape architect. But if you do a little Google research, you can see that Graham appears to have been or is a registered landscape architect. It is a little disappointing that this was, I think it was classified as almost unverified.
Yeah.
And it was not listed that Graham was a landscape architect on the Clark record. But this is the information that we have. Dom, I don't know if you wanted to add anything based upon some of your research.
Yeah, I just think it's just a little disturbing that it was not called out to us. And like I said, I've done the research based on, on looking at the professional and under, I had to basically go to South African Council of Landscape Architect professions. But the one concern I do have is, they have C landscape architect, technician, technologist, C landscape architect. And then we are assuming PROF is professional landscape architect. I believe it's professor of landscape architects. Regardless, he's listed on their website. My other concern is that it's not so much with the candidate, it's more with the Clark Council record because it's not up to date. And I did the same research you did, and I found out she's working at Glengate for the last year. And that's not under the work experience or detail verified. As such, it should be updated. It should show that as the most recent. It doesn't affect the first E or the second E. If we were to take that Graham Young is that, I think we need to have a talk with Clark. They need to do their due diligence and say it's either unverifiable or they found the registrations or the certifications in a different jurisdiction. Puts us at a precarious position for that. Based on that, I'm not worried about the first E or the second E. I am concerned the work experience hasn't been updated. And likewise, I voiced my concern that when you LinkedIn search her, she's listing herself as a landscape architect currently that resides in Riverside, Connecticut.
Can I ask a question also? Is she, she didn't take the exams,
No,
correct?
she's asking to sit.
She's asking to sit for the exam.
She's
Okay,
following the proper, she's actually following the
Okay.
proper
All right.
order of things.
well, I know when I had an unusual background, I had to come to Hartford with boxes. I had to show 20 to 22 years of experience, have letters of recommendation, and show work in front of the board. And that was a while ago, but it was a 20-year requirement to be able to sit without, she does have an academic record.
Mhm.
Certainly she's attached her BA to this, or BS, with a pretty good academic record. But I'm confused. Term 1999. She's been at this a while.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We have a couple options.
Mhm.
We could accept that we did our homework and it appears that 8 of her years was under a landscape architect, and we can move forward with that understanding, or we can ask for additional information. As Dom said, Clark, it's unverified. We've had the unverified, or it should be unverified. We've had this come to us before. And I think in every instance, even though some of the candidates, the applicants, experience was unverified, they were able to meet the minimum requirement based upon verified. This one is a little interesting that we're sort of doing our own homework to see if it's really verified. Because if she didn't study under if she didn't get her experience under a landscape architect, there is no gray area for her to get licensed in the state of Connecticut anymore.
I see.
So we could ask for additional information or a verification that her 8 years, or at least 4 of her 8 years were under a professional landscape architect, and ask for a little bit more information. And we can also note that per our regulations or statute, and I'm not sure which one it falls under, that you cannot call yourself a landscape architect or advertise yourself as a landscape architect until you
R1.
are one. So, I mean, there are different things we could do on this one, and I just want to discuss it a little bit more.
I'll say that 2 things are my observations. One, it is not unusual to see people list themselves as landscape architects who aren't. I don't like it. I usually see it in articles. It bothers the hell out of me. When I wasn't one, it bothered me so much that I personally, I'll just throw in, I had a very hard time with CLARB in person at an ASLA Expo, where I spoke with them. And literally the woman said, you'd be lucky if you could get licensed in Alabama. Why don't you go to Alabama to take your test? I was like, well, I guess in Alabama they just hand out. But, I mean, I had a very unusual, and I felt very strongly that I did not want to be misidentified, and I really hated it, and I corrected it when I saw it, and I felt inauthentic, and that I needed to actually do it. Right? It just was, and I hadn't asked to be listed or quoted as one. So we all know how confused people are between landscape architects and landscape designers. On the other hand, I felt that I met a lot of landscape designers who were damn good, really, really good.
Yep.
And
No
they
doubt.
just hadn't set for the exams. So, I'm a little torn. I also think that if she's working at Glengate, then she should list that. And maybe just come on a meeting and show some of her work. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the rules are anymore, but I know I had to. Is she listed on their website, Dominic, as a landscape architect?
No, I found her on LinkedIn.
Okay, then that was her listing herself as one then.
Correct.
That's not
She's
great.
listing herself. No, Glengate, under her experience, she's listed as a senior project landscape designer.
Okay. It's not
But
great
under
if she
her,
lists
yeah.
herself as one.
Correct.
No, I don't like that. I mean, that's something you fight against. You don't volunteer to do an inauthentic credential. Is it possible to communicate with her that should be changed?
I think we can request information, correct, Rochelle?
I cannot relay anything. If we need more information from her, I could go ahead and ask for it.
Yeah, I think we can give her options. We'd love for her to come to our next meeting and give her the
Yeah.
opportunity. We have questions regarding her experience.
I did send her the information for today's meeting, saying that, you guys had her information and would be reviewing it and ready for it for this meeting, and that she might want to attend in case you have any questions.
Good. So we did that. Thank you very much. That's perfect.
You're welcome. The other thing is, if there's something, if you want me to relay that you've made some kind of a decision or regarding her advertising herself as a landscape architect already, I can relay that information to her as well, saying, make the adjustment. But
I feel that, I'm going to take the softer tack, because even though that Mark knows that I'm not soft when it comes to these things, she probably doesn't know that some people graduate and get their degree in landscape architecture and they feel like, oh, I'm a landscape architect, and her degree was landscape architecture from a different country. So I think we should at least make her aware of that if you're advertising it at this point, just to be on the same point where we're not choosing favorites or anything like that. And like I said, I think it's a clarification on our end in terms of we really need nowhere on this back up from Clarb. And again, I blame Clarb. I mean, they should have something in here, even if it was a secondary statement that said, listen, we can't verify it, but the gentleman, is he a professor of landscape architecture? Is he a certified landscape architect? I have no idea. Like I said, I'm on the South African Council of Landscape Architect Professionals, and I still haven't really been able to decipher what C landscape architect means, or prof, as we know in this state, you can be a professor of landscape architecture and not licensed. So I think it's a certification, but I'm not sure because they have
And that's
landscape
okay.
architect.
Certification is fine.
Exactly.
Correct.
But they have C landscape architectural technician. I think he's a professor of landscape architect or professional. I don't know. I don't know.
Yes, so I think, Maggie and Rochelle, I think we need to reach back out to her and say that we reviewed her information. Thank you for submitting everything. We do need some additional information to verify that she got a minimum of 4 of her years of experience under a landscape architect, and maybe in parentheses, certified certificate holder. We need to have something that verifies it, because other than that, we really can't make that call, just because. I just don't see it. I think maybe we can frame it that way. And then I don't know, I'm 50-50 on if we even bring up the landscape architecture, the landscape architect calling themselves a landscape architect or not. I don't know if we keep the two separate at this point.
Well, I think it's wrong, and I think it's misrepresentation,
Okay.
which is a misrepresentation to the public. That she's certified and understands, not to, how to handle water and drainage and all of the things that ruin nice looking projects that landscape designers do, having been one myself. So, I know the pitfalls of it, and I know that what I learned from taking the test pointed out to me what I wasn't really have great facility in. That was a real learning experience, and well worth the struggle. And if she works at Glengate and they're calling her a senior landscape designer, she's very well aware that she's not a landscape architect. They are not playing around. They're not I deal with them pretty often, especially since they've been bought by Mariani, and they're very clear on credentials there. They're very clear. And they're very clear what's legal and isn't legal. And so they've made that clear to her, I am sure. And they would, as all of us who employ people, would love to call our employees landscape architects.
Yeah.
But if they're not, they're not.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we can just say, it's also noted that you cannot advertise or call yourself a landscape architect in the state of Connecticut unless you have met the qualifications of being a landscape architect in the state of Connecticut. Maybe it can just be a statement on the end of that. On the end of that request.
I think it's true. And if you look at her background, she's gone in and out of landscape architecture quite a bit.
Yeah.
So what do you guys do?
Dom, are you okay with that? And Janice, if we work on a letter, if I work on the letter with staff and try and get a request back out to them that references these things.
Absolutely.
And we do not have to act on it. And I think that's the right call.
Furthermore, and I hate to do this to you, can we just alert Clarb that they got to do better? I mean, that's just, I know they're only providing what's provided for them, but it's not very clear there if it even meets our qualifications.
Sure, there's no doubt about it. I mean, Clarb, I think, looks at it like they have, 50 others, and they do their limited, they take what they get and they pass it along, and they make a phone call or two, and if they don't get the information that they need, it still gets pushed through. I do feel that way, so.
I agree.
Well, they have this weird disclaimer at the top. This information is not an evaluation of the record against CARB standards of eligibility for council certification. So what are they doing? you know?
95% of it,
We were gonna
they
go
have no
watch a
problem. I think
lacrosse
maybe
game
even a
on
higher
Sunday, but
percentage.
I
They have no
canceled
problem with getting the
and pushed
verification.
till yesterday.
And that note is a
It was just
CYA.
too administrative.
Mhm.
I think we all know that.
We hung out.
Yeah.
So I think
I
what we
agree.
can do, maybe we should copy Clarb on our, whatever
Yeah,
we send
but
back
anyway.
to,
Yeah.
Otto. We can copy Clarb and let him know that we're doing additional research.
So many things with building
And that
Right?
we
I
had
think that's
to
probably the
because
best
they
thing we can
didn't.
do.
Yeah, after that, I got some nice
We
things
had to
up,
because
especially
they didn't, but also
Boston
I will
Chinatown.
say, on the other hand, I do
And
commend her.
Sundays,
for
lots of
coming to
shoveling
get
in the snow. It's
licensed.
so
Legitimately.
Exactly. Thank you for coming
Absolutely.
to
I
us.
commend her for that, and I also commend her for coming in to take those
license
exams at what looks like she's gonna be past 40. I was in my 50s, and it is hell. So when we tell her that she can take
So,
these
Gia,
exams, her
know
life
this
is about to
week?
become
We
pretty
are
miserable for
very
about
late,
2
so-
years, because it's not so easy when you're older to be
Yeah,
doing all
I-
of this.
I agree with
So
Janice. We
she's
should,
volunteering for torture here and doing it the right way on a lot of levels.
Yeah. we should definitely start with the positive of
Yeah,
thank
I
you
would
for
encourage
following our
her. Yeah,
documented
exactly.
procedure.
I would encourage her. There are so many people out there calling themselves landscape architects who would never dream of sitting for the exams. So I commend her for that. And by the time she gets done taking them and passing them, she will be qualified to hold that
Yeah.
license.
Yeah.
So I commend her. I commend her for actually, and I agree with Dominic, maybe, on second thought, maybe she has no idea that she can't call herself that. And but I commend her for coming to get licensed. And if it's Glengate that's insisted that she take the exams, I commend them as well.
All right, so I think we have an approach on this one. I'll work with staff to get this information request back out to her, and we will
Okay.
CC Clarb on it.
Okay.
All right. Moving on, 5B and 5C in the agenda is just a list of licensure through exam waiver. But I just want to note that we have
Mhm.
4, 8, 9, it's about 9 or 10 new landscape architects in the state of Connecticut that will be granted via waiver that we do not have to make any action on. Don?
I have a question on them
Shoot.
what is, we have credential number, then we have contact name, then first effective date. Is that when they're licensed in the state of Connecticut?
Yes.
All right. And then they come from a different licensure in another state, correct?
Different jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then part of the internal process is to review that to see how long they've been licensed in that other state.
If they have a CLARB record, then they've already met the standards. If it's direct, then they need 10 years in the other state.
Yeah. Okay. Because you have the exam waiver, direct New York.
Yeah.
I know that, so that's cool. All right, cool. That's it. Just my own
question,
curi-
Dom.
It's just my own curiosity.
Now, following up on that, this is such a limited case, but what happens if there was professional action taken up?
Usually,
Even
so
if
if there
it
was
was-
something kind of beyond, you mean like in their record?
Yeah,
Yeah, so it kind of depends. If it's something CE related or something minor like that, I would let that go. If it's something questionable, I would come to you with it.
okay, that was my question. Yeah,
Yeah, usually
there
it's
is a
pretty
review
quiet.
done. That's
Usually
good.
what I see for any of that would be either, CE violations, or if there was a lapse in their license. And it's basically just stating there was a lapse, they reinstated, they just weren't working in the state at the time, really minor things.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that answer. 5C, again, license for corporate practice. We had 3 new
Yeah,
ones.
you didn't get anything back from.
And again,
like,
we take no
right?
action on this one. This is more of an informational, but I think there's
Mhm.
definitely some action in the state of Connecticut with new individual licenses and corporate practice license.
Yeah, it'll just be,
Sorry, I got background.
so,
Well, that's fine. And then moving on to item 6, correspondence. Has there been any additional correspondence?
I haven't received anything.
Okay, I didn't believe so. And then item 7, comments or concerns of any person present today. Is there anybody in the waiting room just to check?
Nope, still just us.
Okay.
Sport.
Anybody here have any comments?
And then we just have.
I'll go on the formal record that it appears that we may have a person that's interested to serve on the board as a public member. They have
Great.
applied, they've made me aware they have applied, so we'll see if they get approved or if they're worked through the system. And I can speak that ASLA is watching it, just see if they get through.
So, but it sounds
Okay.
like probably enough to keep you busy, Nick.
And then I am going to send out an email just as a little reminder. We know Phil had a last minute, couldn't make the meeting. Thankfully Janice got through traffic and got here. But thank you. But I'm gonna send an email
So
back out
sorry.
to our board. It's still small, just to make sure that, hey, the importance of getting 3 of us here is critical, or we have to reschedule. So just put a little emphasis on that one, but I will do that one. So that's good. And then if we don't have anything else to talk about,
Keep that in
we
mind,
had a
and-
good quick meeting.
And we'll be back.
Tom, you
on
good?
Thursday.
I got one more thing, just because I wasn't unable to make the session that Rochelle had sent out, and I did watch the video, so good intel and information if anyone wasn't present for it, watch the video.
There were a lot of people there. I got into the room. It was very well done, Rochelle.
Thank you. I'm glad that it was helpful. That was
It's good.
that
It
was the
was
goal
good.
there.
It must
so
have been a
I'm
lot
glad
of
that-
trouble to organize all that.
And it's gonna be good for when new people come on board as well, too. So
Right,
it's
yeah,
great.
that was
It's just
our goal
good and-
too, was a
yeah.
good little intro to kind of how things go, so.
Yep.
Well, that's
Yeah, I have
good
a
to hear.
quick question about the corporate practice. So in other words, these are people who already have a license for corporate practice of landscape architecture? 5C? I don't know, the applications for, we just grant them because they're licensed?
But no, so we review their application, and they've already been approved by us. They already met the requirements.
I
So
got you.
they have to list a lead landscape architect in
Got
order
it.
to request the corporate so, they could have had it at one point and it expired and they're requesting to get it again, or they're brand new.
Oh, so
Did I
they
say
can be
that right?
licensed to work in this state,
Correct.
in other words, right, so that they can list that for their projects.
Yep.
Understood. Okay.
Okay, I think we made it through. I think we can end this meeting. This was great, and we don't have to have it next Thursday or Tuesday, whenever we were gonna do it. So we will adjourn this meeting officially at 10:10. And we have a little bit of homework to do, so we'll get that out. And